It's 1, 2, 3. What are you fighting for? Next stop is Vietnam. Bum 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 bum. Da-da-dum, bum 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 bum. Next stop is Vietnam, and it's 5, 4, 5, 6. What are we fighting for? Da-da-da-dum, bum 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 bum. Da-dum, bum bum bum. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? And it's bum 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 da 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 bum 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 da 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 jump bum bum bum.
The rabbi's not here yet, huh? Oh, he is here. Okay.
Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi say.
Alechem shalom.
Oh,
Ah, okay. That's my new face mask here.
okay, Rabbi say. I felt that because we missed so much, the concept of tefillah was really hit hard the last few months. We're not able to daven b'tzibur and to daven properly. I thought it's kedai that we should revisit some of the halachis of davening of Hilchos Tefillah. And we'll have a series on it. I'm going through some of the basic halachis, and we'll see how it goes. I hope that in Mitzvah Shem very soon we'll be able to be in the shul again and have a shir in the shul. We won't have to be using Zoom anymore. So Lamaisa, the Tefillah Shemona Esrei was enacted by the Anshe Knesses Hagdoila. They set up to daven 3 tefillos of a day, each Yud Ches Brachis. Now, the Aves David, these tefillas, Chazal tell us that each one of the 3 Aves was Masakin another tefillah. Avram Avinu was Masakin Shachris, Mincha Yitzchak, and Ma'ariv Yaakov Avinu. However, even though the Aves enacted this, and even though the Aves behaved this way and they davened, however, that itself does not constitute an obligation for us. That was their personal minhag. That was a minhag they had, a beautiful minhag that they started. However, it's not a chiyuv on Klal Yisrael to take that upon themselves. The chiyuv comes from the Anshe Knesset Hagdoila. So the origins of it come from the Avis, but the obligation comes from the Anshe Knesset Hagdoila, the men of the great assembly. There are a number of things that way that we find that the Oves did it, and our Chiv does not become because of the Oves. I'll tell you an example. Bris Milah is something Avraham Avinu did. He actually was commanded to do it. It wasn't just something he did like davening. It wasn't commanded. The Oves weren't commanded to daven. But the Avraham Avinu actually davened, he did Bris Milah. He was commanded to Bris Milah. But the Rambam makes it clear that the reason why we do Bris Milah is not because because the Avraham Avinu did Bris Milah. We do Bris Milah because Hashem told us at Har Sinai to do Bris Milah. It's a separate idea. Yes, the origins of Bris Milah, the original one who did, the first person who did Bris Milah was Avraham Avinu. However, our obligation to do Bris Milah stems from the fact that in Matan Torah, Hashem said we should do Bris Milah, which is a pasuk in Parshas Tazria, not the pasuk in Parshas Lech Lecha, the psukim that talk about Avraham Avinu's Bris Milah. Another example we have is about Meiser Kesafim, giving Meiser from our monies. There is a machlokes. What is the source? What is the level of obligation to give Meiser from one's money? We know the Torah says clearly that one should take Meiser for one's produce from the field, one's fruits. One's supposed to give Meiser. That's clear in the Torah. He's supposed to taif, give a tenth of your produce, the tvua. However, it does not say anywhere in the Torah clearly, explicitly, that we should take Meiser from our money. Take a Meiser from money. We know this is something that we do, and it's discussed in Shulchan Aruch, the halachas about it. The question is, where is the origin of this? We don't find this in the Torah anywhere. So it's actually a three-way machlokes. Some opinions hold it's actually only a minhag. Some hold it's a chiyuv midrabanan, and some hold it's a chiyuv min haTorah. I think most opinions hold that's a chiyuv midrabanan. But min haTorah, it's only on fruit and produce. L'maisa, everyone agrees that the Aves were noyeg this way. We have, like Avraham Avinu says, Vayiten le Avraham Maisa Mikoil. Avraham gave Malki Tzedek Maisa from everything that he owned, from what he had. So we find there's also a pasuk in Yitzchak that Yitzchak gave Meiser. So we know the Aves gave Meiser, and it wasn't only from their produce. They also, the Avraham Avinu gave Meiser from his possessions, not only from things that he grew. By Yitzchak, it was Vayizra Yitzchak Bashanahi, that the pasuk explains that that he was planting and taking Meiser from his field. So there you find the concept of Meiser Tvua. But by Avraham Avinu, we see that he gave Malki Tzedek Meiser from possessions that weren't things that grew. However, even though Avraham Avinu did that does not automatically create an obligation on us to take Meiser. That was something Avraham Avinu personally did. It was a very special thing and a very holy thing. But just because he did that doesn't mean that I have to do it. Doesn't mean everyone in Klal Yisrael is mechuyev to do it. So everyone agrees, all three opinions about Meiser Kesafim, Meiser Kesef, Meiser Kesafim agree that the origins of the minhag to give Meiser come all the way back from the Avis, to give Meiser from one's possessions. However, whether or not this obligation is min haTorah on us today is a subject for dispute. So those who say it's only a minhag, they also hold it's something the Avis did, but they still hold that it remains a minhag. It's a very, very ancient minhag. It's a minhag that Klal Yisrael has been doing from the days of the Avis, giving Meiser. But it does not constitute the chiyuv min haTorah u'midrabanan. We're not learning the sugya Meiser now. I'm just brought it up as another example. We find certain things that were done by the Avis but that doesn't mean that we're obligating it. We have to always find a later source to show us that we are chayiv to do it. So over here, the Aves, we know daven. There's many drashas of Chazal how the Aves daven, but the actual obligation that all of Klal Yisrael needs to daven is something that Anshe Knesset Gdoila enacted. So many people must probably daven. There were many tzaddikim, many people daven, many people when they want to daven. However, this was not something that was Klal Yisrael as a chiyuv that everyone needs to daven. Now, two of them, Chazal made them as a chiyuv, and Ma'ariv was considered rishus, something that if you want, you could daven. What was the basis behind this, the logic behind it? We know that every day when there was a Beis Hamikdash, there were two karbanis had to be brought daily. That was the carbon tamid in the morning and the carbon tamid at night. The first carbon in the morning and the last carbon at night. We read it every day in karbanis, both before Shachris and both before Mincha. We read the psukim of the carbon tamid. Now, when there was no more Beis Hamikdash, Chazal said that two of these tefillas are a chiyuv because they correspond, the Shachris and Mincha correspond to the two carbon tamid tzmidim that we are missing. So these are in lieu instead of those karbanis. However, Ma'ariv, there is no third carbon brought daily. It's only two karbanis shar chiyuv on a regular day. Tamid in the morning, Tamid Shachar, Tamid Shabbat Abayim. If it's a day when it's Rosh Chodesh, Shabbos, or Yom Tov, you have also carbon musaf, additional karbanis. As well, every day people brought nedarim and nedavis, people brought their neder and nedav. However, what every day in the entire year is the same, there was a carbon tam in the morning and at night, in the afternoon. So what is Ma'ariv about? Ma'ariv responds to the limbs of the carbon tamid that were brought up on the Mizbeach the entire night. The carbon tamid had to be shechted by day, and the blood of the carbon tamid had to be received by day. But the actual burning of the limbs, that can go on throughout the night. So corresponding the hektar evarim v'chalavim, evarim v'pedarim, it was in Sakim Ma'ariv. So since that itself is not a carbon per se, it's just an act of finishing off the process and of the carbon, but the actual carbon tamid is chiyuv mincha corresponds to that. So therefore, Ma'ariv was Chazal were only said it's a reshus. If you want, you could daven. If you want, you don't have to daven. However, at a later period of time, Klal Yisrael accepted upon themselves the davening Ma'ariv as a chiyuv. So it became a choiva. So this is only an negeh for historical purposes, because l'maisa Ma'ariv today is considered a chiyuv.
So, Rabbi,
Yes.
even though the rabbis don't give us the idea that giving tzedakah is a chiyuv, it's still connected with reward and punishment, is it not?
Which tzedakah are you referring to? Meiser?
Yeah.
Well, that if you're not obligated, it wouldn't be considered the word. There would be reward, but I don't know about punishment.
But we see that in Sodom, many other places, even the Mishnah, if a person doesn't give a certain amount of tzedakah, he won't find a blessing in his field. And in Sodom, that they didn't support the poor, they were destroyed.
Very good point. So there's two separate ideas. There's Meiser and the Tzedakah. So I'm happy you asked the question so we can clarify. There's Meiser and the Tzedakah. A person sees a poor person who needs help, he's obligated to help him. That's nothing to do with Meiser. He has an obligation, a chiyuv to help him. That's whether it's Meiser, whether it's not Meiser. He has a chiyuv to help that person. As well, a person obligated every year, with her has many psukim to discuss giving tzedakah. A person is obligated every year to give a certain amount of tzedakah. regardless of Meiser, he has to give a certain amount of tzedakah. It's a very minimal amount that every person, no matter any Jew, has to give that amount of tzedakah. I think it's a third of a shekel. I don't know what that would be in our current currency. It's not a lot of money, but every person cannot go by a year without giving that minimal amount of tzedakah.
Also, Meiser is not yours. Tzedakah is yours.
Yeah, another point. So Meiser Kasafim is that even if I don't have any poor person near me, all of my earnings, I have to take 10% and set it aside for tzedakah. It's not about whether I see a poor person, I have someone hungry near me, someone who's asking me for money. There's an obligation. The Torah says you cannot hide. You cannot hide. You have to give the person tzedakah. You can't make believe you don't see him. You have an obligation, Pesach, Tiftach, Es Yadcha, and to help the person. Meiser is there's no poor people. You have money. You're earning. You have to set aside 10% for tzedakah. You don't have a right to keep it all for yourself. You have to give it to Hashem. I hope that clarifies that a little.
Thank you. It did.
It's a separate obligation.
Okay.
So the chiyuv tzedakah, there's no question about it. It's the chiyuv min haTorah, the chiyuv tzedakah. The chiyuv of meiser, there's a discussion as to what level the obligation is. We know we're chayiv to do it, and we do it. It's something. There's a siman in Shulchan Aruch that talks about it, the details of the halachas. However, exactly what status it has, if it's min haTorah with the rabbanon or a minig, that is a subject of a great machlokes. And obviously, there are certain situations where there would be differences, whether it's considered a minig, the rabbanon or min haTorah.
We just read it on Shavuos. It's Asar Tehasar. The Torah says.
But what are the next words after Asar to Asar?
Bishvish Titasha.
No, that's in Chazal. What's the next words in Torah?
Et kol something.
Bigoncha.
Asar to Asar is called Meiser to Oscha, no? So it's about the Tvuah.
Right.
We only have a chiyuv clear in Torah that you have to give a meiser of your tevuah, your produce that grows. We don't find any clear chiyuv that we are chayiv to also give from our earnings. We see Avraham Avinu did that. That's something he did. It's something that Avraham Avinu did, Yitzchak did, Yaakov followed suit. However, we cannot, just because they are others did something beautiful, a special holy minig, does not necessarily obligate us. So we have to look into it. Is that an obligation for us? That's something that they did because they were close to Hashem and they decided they want to do it. Sometimes a big tzaddik does something. It doesn't necessarily, it's a chumrah, it's a hiddur, necessarily mechayev, obligate his children and his grandchildren afterwards. So it's definitely an ancient minute. Similar thing, tefillah. The concept of tefillah is a very ancient concept. You find in the Torah all around that the Ovis daven. But whether that's an obligation now that we have to daven, and we have to daven 3 times a day, that's something that was later. That was more something that Anshe Knesset Agdoila instituted, that it's important to daven every day. And by the way, I want to point out something else. If someone is in an Eis Tzara, and he has a Chmanot San, something that he needs to daven for, which we all have things that we need to daven for. When you have something that you need, it's for sure a chiyuv min haTorah to daven. The question is, when is institutionalized tefillos of 3 times a day? That's not a chiyuv min haTorah. That's from the Anshe Knesset. But if someone has a tzara and he needs to daven for someone, he needs a refuah shleima, he needs parnasa, he needs a shidduch, whatever he needs, and he feels is bothering him, he has a chiyuv to turn to Hashem. You have to turn to Hashem when you feel that you have a problem. That's a chiyuv min haTorah, I think, according to all opinions. It's just the daily davening of every day and the daily davening of these specific 18 brachas is something that came later on from the Anshe Knesset. I hope we made a little clarity. Now, originally there were 18 brachas. At a later point in time, when there were many apikursin heretics in Klal Yisrael, and these heretics, Epikursin made a lot of tsaras for the Yidden. They were actually Jewish people themselves, and they were persuading a lot of people to leave the path of Torah and to deny Torah Shabbat Peh. Stood up Rabbi Gamliel and his Bezdin, and they added Birches Haminim, the bracha that discusses the heretics in every single Shmoneh Esrei. This being a very serious issue, that davened Hashem to save us from the hands of the heretics. And that now we really have 19 brachas, but people still call it Shmoneh Esrei 18, because that's what it originally was. But today it's 19 brachas. Obviously in Shabbos and Yom Tov it's 7 brachas, but during the week it's 19 brachas. We know the Navi says, "Ma'asayich u'machivayich u'meichitzeu." Our destroyers come from our own mimechitzeu, from your own stomach. The Navi says they come out, meaning from our own people. So this was a big problem at different points in history, where we had people of our own who were helping evil governments to create different decrees against Klal Yisrael and different tzaras, and this is a big issue.
If Lamalshinim, it's a night in the broche, why they stuck it middle Shmoneh? Why didn't you put it all the way at the last? Like Jifu al Tzadikim, why they decided to put it there, not after the 3 broches? It's like, why dafka there?
A good question. Later on, there is a siman that talks about the order of the brachis, and over there should be something about it. I don't recall what the answer to your question is. Definitely a good point. Let's wait. Let's wait till we move along, and hopefully we'll see the answer to your question. Well, one thing is, I'm just thinking now, I don't see any reason in Shulchan Aruch about it, but I'm thinking now that the reason why we say it then is because it's right after we say Melech Oyev Tzedakah Mishpat. We say Hashiva Shetenu, Hashem should bring us back true judges who will judge our people, because Hashem is someone who loves righteousness and justice. So maybe that's the connection with the next bracha talking about the Malshinim, where we don't have real justice. We have issues with the Malshinim are making tzaris for Klal Yisrael. And the next bracha is where we daven for the tzaddikim. Ala tzaddikim, ala chasidim, we daven for the tzaddikim. Hashem should watch them and keep them safe. So probably that's why it's in between those 2 brachas. Although I'm just saying this on my own, not based on something I saw.
I remember Refuenu is a certain amount of broches because it has to do with Bris Milah. So dafka there, they put it like, I think it's the 8th broche.
Yeah.
So it has to do, but maybe I'll look at it after it.
Yeah.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Does the Rambam, I'm sure he does somewhere, what does he say about how to handle these Malshinim?
I got to be careful what I say, I don't want to.
Okay.
Whatever needs to be done should be done.
Okay.
You got to be careful.
I got it.
Careful. I one time had a certain individual that he used to come sometimes eat by my Shabbos table, and then he, I noticed that he started going to the press and talking about our different problems publicly, the papers, and saying that this institution is doing something which is wrong, or this institution is doing something wrong. And I was shocked. I came to Koilo one day, and the Yingalite said, "Did you see the newspaper that came out, Saturday paper?" I don't see the Saturday paper. They said it was this guy, he's busy pointing out that this thing the Jewish community is doing wrong. This thing the Jewish community, I was shocked. This person comes to eat by my house, not every Shabbos, but once in a while he would come. This is a story happened years ago. And I had to ask some people how to deal with him because, I wanted to be careful that I didn't want to get in trouble with him, that he should start, going after me. So I called up a certain Rav, a very smart Rav, and he told me that in Europe, the Muslim always sat in Mizrach Vant. Means they always sat in the eastern wall. They were considered the honorable people because people were afraid of them. So the Masr, the Malshinim, the Moisim that always were giving over things to the government, the community had to deal with them, had to work around them, because if we wouldn't give them their honor, they would run and tattletale on different things. So if they want to sit in Mizrach in the east, you give them covet. If they want to have a chashav aliyah, you give them the chashav aliyah, shlishi, shishi, just to keep them quiet, because they suffered from these people. It wasn't an easy thing to deal with them. So he tells me, my case, smile, be nice to him, don't say anything, but definitely try to, keep away from having him over in your house next to your family in a polite way. Don't go out of your way to invite him and things like that. So eventually let the relationship just dissipate.
Rabbi,
Yes.
some places it said laminim velamalshinim. Are they the same? Minim and malshinim?
There must be yes. Minim means that apikoides. They are heretics in the Torah. They're koifer. They deny parts of the Torah. A malshinim doesn't mean that they deny parts of the Torah. It means that they are going to the government and getting the Yidden in trouble. They're telling them that the Jewish people are doing this and they're doing that, and the government's coming and putting people in jail or hurting people, and this is especially something in Europe. That was very serious, consequence. Over here we're dealing, it's a little bit different than America. There still could be such a concept, but it's a little different. We're dealing with a society with a certain justice system, and you can't just go and get the government to go after someone. But in Europe and other places, and also in the Middle East, there were many the governments that didn't need any excuses really to go after the Jewish people. So if they heard anything bad about the Jewish people, they would right away come in and do what they did. So that's a malshin, on a musser. He doesn't mean necessarily, maybe he's a from Jew. Maybe he keeps all the mitzvahs. Maybe he believes kilo in the Torah. But for some reason, these things he's not keeping. These laws, he separates himself from Klal Yisrael, as he's not part of them, and so it's a different issue.
Are you allowed to be malshin but goy?
Ask your local Orthodox rabbi.
Okay.
Every situation has to be dealt with differently. If this is something normal, you can call 311 and say that this is going on, something which is bothering you. It's a normal thing in society. I don't see what the problem could be. But whether or not you're allowed to do that on a Jewish person is not necessarily going to be clear. You have to that with a Rav before you calling up the government against someone, especially in cases where this can chas v'shalom lead to someone sitting in jail and things like that, which is a much more serious thing than just getting a ticket or something like that. I'm not a mumche in these halachas, and you have to ask someone if the chas v'shalom such situations arise to find out what you're allowed to do, not allowed to do, and a person also has to protect himself. So, a person can't allow themselves just to be taken over by people that are just gonna are malshan him constantly or bothering him. There are times when a person is befeirish, allowed to go to the police or the government. If someone's life is in danger, someone's being abused in different things, then one has the right to go. Just like someone's coming to mug you or steal from you, you don't say he's Jewish, I don't call the cops. If it's a danger, it's something, then you have to call the police. We're talking where there's no danger for you. It's a different story. Okay, getting back to Hilchos Tefillah. Now, can we start davening in the morning? We can start davening. But the time of davening starts from Alois Hashachar, meaning from dawn. There's dawn and sunrise. Amad Hashachar and Alois Hashachar are both synonymous. They both mean dawn. Netzach Chama means sunrise. When we actually see the sun has risen, has risen. Now, we still in all, even though you can daven from Alois Hashachar Shemona Esrei, halach is that we wait until Netzach Chama, because the differentiations between Alois and Netzach Chama are not always so clear. So therefore we wait till it's 100% day, and we wait till Netzach Chama, unless it's a certain situation where b'diavad someone is traveling somewhere or whatever it is, that he has no time to daven later, so then he could daven Shemona Esrei before Netzach Chama, before sunrise. Now, there is a mitzvah to daven with the Netzach Chama. Means as soon as the sun comes out, you daven to Hashem. The pasuk says in Tehillim, Yeruucha im shemesh, that I will see you with the sun. You will daven to Hashem with the sunrise. So that's called vasikin, what people commonly call vasikin. They daven the entire tefillah up until Shemona Esrei, and as soon as it hits Netzach Chama, Netz, they start Shemona Esrei. Now, when is the ending of davening? The ending of davening is 3 hours into the day. These are not 60-minute hours. They're 3 hours called shoyz manias. You divide a day into 12 hours, the time of sunlight into 12 hours. 3 of those hours into the day, that is the ending of the time when l'chatchila you're supposed to finish davening Shemona Esrei. Now, over here we find a difference between the Shulchan Aruch and the Siddur. The Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe calculated that one should count these 3 hours from dawn. However, in the Siddur he changed, and you calculate the 3 hours from Neitz Achama. From dawn, from sunrise, you calculate the 3 hours. Now, this is the Chatchila. However, if one did not daven before Zman Tefillah, before a third of the day, he can daven after Chatzos, up until Chatzos. Up until noontime, which is, let's say, these days around 1 o'clock. He is Yoitza davening, but he was not Yoitza Tefillah B'zmana. Tefillah B'zmana is dafkin daven before Zman Tefillah. So, by a lot of Hasidim, they sort of forgot about this halacha, because Hasidim originally, their Hasidus was set up in a way that one would go to the mikveh before davening and learn Hasidus, make hachana for tefillah. Because they're making hachana for tefillah, so therefore there was it was not easy to daven before Zman Tefillah. It became the seder that Hasidim were not makbid in Zman Tefillah, because they held, since b'di'evid you are yoitza up until Chatzos, and so therefore, and we have a lot of achanis, preparations for davening. The preparations are more important, and it's more important to daven with kavana and get ready for having a real davening, even though you'll miss Zman Tefillah. and therefore became the Seder and the Hasidic Kehilas Talachatchila, because the Rebbes and the Yeshivas all daven at a later time to allow for these Hachanas preparations. But in reality, there is a din of Zman Tefillah, and if someone is not making Hachanas for davening, and he has nothing what to do, he has no reason why he should be davening later, he definitely should be davening earlier before Zman Tefillah. It's just that the formal setup of the shuls and the yeshivas was set up in an oifin that say 10 o'clock, starting Shachris and Shabbos is usually after Zman Tefillah, or maybe always after. A lot of the times after Zman Tefillah, not the whole year. A lot of the year, by the time you reach Shemoneh Esrei, you'll be after Zman Tefillah. However, the reason for that is, like the Rebbe explained to someone, that number one, he doesn't want to change because that's when his father-in-law davens. Number two, because of the issue of davening, of chachanas to davening, because people should be learning, having a shir in L'kotei Torah, having a shir Chassidus, and going to the mikveh and doing whatever other hachanas they were doing. Therefore, things were chatchila pushed later. But again, a person should be careful to daven before chatzos, before noontime. After davening, after chatzos, api halacha, you're not allowed to daven shachris anymore. If you did it by accident, or you had no choice, so then you have a chance to make up mincha, do daven mincha 2 times. However, really, you should not be davening after chatzos. There were G'dolei Chasidei Chabad, great Chasidei Chabad, who, because they were started a whole morning, early morning, they were learning Chassidus for many hours, and they were meditating and davening. They were davening for a very long time, not like everyone else does chap lap. They were davening for very many hours, and have a dveikus in their davening. So it would come out that their davening would sometimes go later into the afternoon, even after chatzos. So
How about Musaf?
Musaf you can daven after chatzos.
Uh-huh.
L'chatchila you should daven before 7 hours of the day. Before chatzos is 6 hours in the day. Musaf l'chatchila you should daven before 7 hours a day. If not, you can daven an entire day until Shkia Musaf.
Rabbi, what about mincha, davening much later?
So mincha, you can daven b'di'evid, you can daven mincha up until nightfall, meaning even after Shkia, sunset, you're still allowed to daven mincha b'di'evid because it's a suffix yoim, suffix laila, and that can go up until nightfall. Although, of course, no minyanim should be set up in such a way that the person should have to go daven after Shkia. But in the case where someone, for whatever reason, couldn't daven or forgot to daven before Shkia, he could daven up until nightfall, which is the time of Ma'ariv. Once there says Sekichavim, it's already Ma'ariv time, so he can no longer daven mincha. Yeah. Now, if someone made a mistake or he had no choice and he was not able to daven shachris, he wasn't feeling well or whatever it was, he had something very important to do, so then he should daven mincha twice. The first mincha he davens is the mincha of mincha, that's Shemoneh Esrei. And the second field which he davens is to make up, it's tashlumin, to make up for shachris. Now, if you switch the order and you daven the first Shemoneh Esrei was to make up for shachris, and the second Shemoneh Esrei was mincha, you're not yoitza. Specifically, it has to be that first, since right now is mincha time in the afternoon, you have to first fulfill your obligation of mincha. After you finish one Shemoneh Esrei, you can repeat the Shemoneh Esrei second time to make up tashlumin of Tefillah Shach.
But the second Shmona Esrei is Shachrit or is Mincha?
Shachris.
Mhm.
Mincha and then Shachris. Because now you already arrived the time of Mincha, you have a chiyuv the first daven Mincha. You can't make, and now once you daven Mincha ready, you can make up for Shachris and daven a Tefillah of Shach. Now, once it comes the time of davening in the morning, when it comes Amod HaShacher, comes a dawn, a person's not supposed to go around and stam or do other things. He's supposed to go to daven. So he shouldn't be going to his friend's house and having, oh, how you doing? Shalom Aleichem. How you been? Have a nice schmooze. It's not the time. First you have to go daven, and then you'll go say hello to your friend and visit him. This is even in a case where someone once said brachis, all the brachis, birchas hashacher, and he even said Shema. He said the full Shema. Still in all, it's also for him to go to his friend's house and to give him shalom, to go greet someone. However, if you're on the way somewhere, you need to see something. Let's say you needed to go see what's doing with something with your business, and on the way, you saw your friend's. You saw your friend. You could tell him, "Safra de Maratav." Safra de Maratav means good morning, my master. It's a way of saying good morning. Instead of giving him the usual Shalom Aleichem, it should be a little different. Shalom Aleichem, the name Shalom is one of the names of Hashem. It also serves as one of the names of Hashem. So it's not covered to use the name of Hashem, Shalom, for a human being before you gave covet to Hashem through davening. So you shouldn't use the word Shalom Aleichem in the morning. By the way, one shouldn't either say the word Shalom in the mikveh. A person shouldn't say Shalom Aleichem.
Rabbi, also, if somebody sees someone before a net, you can't tell him Shalom. You said Tzafra Tava.
That's right. Tzafra the Maritav, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is all talking in a case where you went to his door. But if you found him in the marketplace or in the shul, al pi halacha, you're allowed to wish him Shalom Aleichem, because you didn't go out of your way to go greet him. You didn't go to his door or go to his house. On the way in the street, you saw him, or in shul. Maybe you didn't daven yet. You're allowed to tell him, wish him Shalom Aleichem and greet him. However, the minig is not to give a person Shalom before davening, even if you found him in the outside, and even if you give him every day, you wish him Shalom. Instead, you should use Tzafra de Mare Tav. You should use a different, because you will say it in a different way. You will recognize to yourself, you have recognition that I should not be busy getting involved with other things. I should go to my davening. So therefore, you make a shinui, and that helps remind you.
So if somebody's picking you up with a car to go to daven, it shouldn't be a good morning.
You could say, you should just say it a little,
Different.
Different.
Okay.
You could say maybe morning, morning, something a little different. Now, a person, it's also for him to get involved with his personal needs, things that he needs to get done before davening in the morning, in order that his mind should stay focused on davening. Some have the meaning to makel on this after one said brachis. However, the Alter Rebbe says it's not proper. A person should not be oisik with other things until he davens. So previously we were dealing with specifically going to greet someone, going to his house and to greet someone. However, someone needs to do something which it's his necessities, so it's a little different. And there is an opinion that is maker with this. The Alter Rebbe said that's not correct. A person should not be lenient with this. As well, someone shouldn't travel before he davens shachris in the morning. If a person, should v'chatchila daven, and then he should go to wherever he needs to go. Unless he's going somewhere, let's say he has a plane. The plane's not going to wait for him. The olden day version of it was a shayara, a caravan is going to travel through the desert, and there's a group going together. It's dangerous to travel alone, and you need some to go with the group. So then you can't daven. Then you don't have to daven first. Then you go join the caravan. Similarly, if your plane's leaving, so you have to go. But other than that, l'chatchila, someone shouldn't set his schedule as playing that way. He should schedule his flights in a way that he should be able to daven first and then go. Now, another halacha. In the morning, it's also to, Chachamim said it's also to eat or drink once it's dawn, Amad HaShachar, until one daven Shemana Esrei. And the Chachamim found leaning for this in a pasuk L'Seichel al Adam. You should not daven on blood, which literally refers he shouldn't eat blood. However, the Chazal tell us L'Seichel you should not eat until you daven for your own blood, for you daven for yourself. And it says that anyone who eats and drinks, Chazal, that Hashem is not happy with him. That after you filled yourself up, you ate and drank, and now you feel all confident. Now you're going to go and mekabel elmach hashemayim. So, because this is the reason behind it, therefore it's more to drink water before davening. Because water does not bring you to such feelings. A person who's satiated, he's very full, he eats food, so he feels a certain type of gaiva to himself, a certain type of strength to himself. A person is supposed to subjugate himself before Hashem, but water is fine. And even Shabbos, one second, even Shabbos v'yontif, we're supposed to make kiddush before you eat. However, you can still drink before davening because it did not yet come the time for kiddush. So, she'in kiddush ela b'makom suda. You can't eat before davening, so therefore you're allowed to make a drink water before davening. Now, as well, other types of food and drinks that if it's a refuah, it's the reason you have for medical reasons, you need to eat, there's no problem. However, for hunger, you're hungry, you're thirsty, you cannot eat or drink unless you're hungry and thirsty to the point where you can't have proper kavan and davening until you eat and drink. And even nowadays, when people don't have so much kavana during Shemana Esrei, as much kavana like they used to, still if someone wants to eat and drink in order that he will be able to have kavana, he is allowed to. Yes, you had a question?
Yeah, you answered it.
So let me just finish talking about it, then we'll discuss a little bit what the minhag is. What happens if someone started to eat before dawn? He needs to stop when it hits dawn. He can't continue eating. Even like mincha, we don't say that. Mincha, we say if you started before mincha time, then you're allowed to continue eating. However, before shachris, it's more severe. The isser is more severe of eating before davening. Other opinions hold that no, only Kriya Shema you have to stop. But for davening, which is not minat Torah, if you started before Alois, it's not a problem. But the Ikar halacha is that no, you have to stop even for davening once it hits Alois HaShachar. Now, we don't see many people are makel with this eating before davening, and reason being really based on what it says in Shulchan Aruch, that if people feel the need to eat and drink because they won't have kavanah and davening, then they are allowed to eat and drink. So in Chabad, the Chabad Rebbeim felt that our doiris are weaker, and therefore they felt that people don't eat or drink something in the morning. The whole entire davening, they're going to be feeling, oh, when am I going to be able to eat breakfast? When am I going to be able to eat? They didn't think that was a good kavanah during davening. When are you going to eat? The kavanah is the idaming to Hashem. They felt better you should eat and drink before davening and feel not rushed. You don't feel hungry. You have nowhere to rush to. And therefore you'll be able to be calm and at ease and to have kavanah for davening. So this is really...
Eating kugel?
Now the Maisa, this does not give us a heter to stam have a full meal. It's not something a person make a big kiddush before davening. A person should eat whatever is necessary. He needs to eat something, he takes something, whatever. He doesn't have to go and have ice cream before davening. It's not necessary to indulge and to have a big kiddush. You eat whatever you need to eat. You don't have to eat dry bread and just water. You can eat other foods that are more nutritious foods that you want to eat. But just to go and say, like before davening, can go and sit down and have a whole big suda is not correct. It was a heter that people should be able to have some mezainis, have a drink, have a fruit, have something which gives them the ability to eat. And that wasn't something that Chabad thought it was something to focus on. They felt we should better be lenient in this area than in other areas. It's interesting, actually, in certain Litvish circles, most Litvish circles are makbid not to eat and drink before davening. I think today most people hold you can have a coffee before davening. Even outside Chabad, I think even Litvish circles, they hold you can have a coffee before davening. Some say not with sugar, but others say you can have with sugar also because that's the normal way. You're not trying to have something sweet, you're just trying to make sure it shouldn't be bitter and have the coffee should be able to go down easier. So everyone's masking that you can have the coffee and the tea. The question is having other drinks and other foods. So, but I want to mention something interesting. We find something parallel, something similar in certain literature circles. They have a minig before Tekiyas and Rosh Hashanah that they have a meal. They actually have a kiddush. The reason being is because Rosh Hashanah davening is very long, and this started originally in Lita in Lithuania, in the Musa yeshivas, where they felt that the Bachrim are not having proper kavanah davening, such a long tefillah. The main davening of Rosh Hashanah is the Musaf Rosh Hashanah. The Musaf, where we have the special psukim, a malchias, a chreinis, and shofars, the long Shemon Esrei. That's the ikr tefillah. And here a person's stomach is grumbling and he can't wait to go make kiddush. They felt better to make a hasaka, make a break, and they would serve a kiddush. People should eat something before Tekiyas, even though Tekiyas is actually a mitzvah min haTorah. Not only an issue of eating before, it's actually an issue of eating before Tekiyas, which is even more serious. And Alpha became they would do this for this very similar reason. So although they're machmer in this a whole year, but a lot of shuls, I believe in Flatbush and other shuls, a lot of them have a break before Musaf and they have a Kiddush. Now, that doesn't really necessarily give us a heter to have a huge lavish spread. You want to make Kiddush, eat something, have a little herring, have what you need to fill yourself up and move forward. But Lamaisa, I think some shuls took it a little extreme and there's big lavish Kiddushim and a huge break before they go to the Musaf, Tfilas Musaf. It's interesting that in Chabad, it's exactly the opposite. A whole year they're make with eating. However, it comes to Rosh Hashanah, they're makbid not to have, eat, and some even not to drink before they finished all the tkiyas. So they don't have this meaning of eating before davening when it comes to Rosh Hashanah. Obviously, in case someone who is an elderly person or someone's weak and needs it for medical reasons, there's no question about it, they should eat and drink. We're talking about healthy, regular people. On Rosh Hashanah, Chabad Chassidim are machmir not to eat, and some not even to drink until after you hear all the tekiyas. This is more based on the fact that a mitzvah, you should not eat or drink before a mitzvah, and especially when you're dealing with a mitzvah in Torah like tekiyas.
Yeah, but Chabad doesn't finish 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. A lot of Hasidic Rebbes, they finish so late that they have to have a break.
Okay, so I think in some of the Rebbes they also have a kiddush. Am I right?
Yeah. I know in Tosh, I was in Tosh, they have.
I think Satmar also has.
Not a big kiddush, just make kiddush and the cake, and that's it. It's not, could be your places.
Yeah. There are places that end mamish. They're marbe and a lot of piyutim and different things. And Chabad, the truth is, it's not that late relatively. And I know someone who's a Rachem Strifke chassid. The Rachem Strifke Rebbe in Eretz Yisrael. He has one in Bar. There's one in Bar Park was his uncle. But the one in Eretz Yisrael, the nephew, he finishes his davening musaf like by shkia. So
That's have to have a. That's what they have to have a. You can't fast them with the Sunday,
Yeah. The Rechem Stifker Rebbe in Eretz Yisrael, by the way, has a brother living in Crown Heights, and
that's his older brother. He should have been Rebbe.
I don't know. Is that really true that he's older? Someone told me that he's younger. He's older. I never got clarity in that.
Okay.
But
he became
Rabbi Twersky in Crown Heights. A Rachem Stifke chassid one time told me that Rabbi Twersky, Nachman Yosef Twersky, Crown Heights, he's the Rachem Stifke Rebbe of Crown Heights. So he became a Chabad chassid. He went to learn Chabad when his Zayda was the Rebbe. Before his father became Rebbe, when his Zayda was still the Rebbe. And obviously his father wanted him to stay in Rachem Stifke, but he wrote to the Rebbe about it, and the Rebbe told him that he should show his father in Shulchan Aruch where it says when there's a disagreement between the father and son, which yeshiva to go to, where to learn, the son does not have to listen to the father, because the son knows where it's best for him to learn, which Rebbe, which Rosh Yeshiva he feels he can learn best by. So the father might have different other chashva reasons, but he cannot force his son, because his son knows what's best for his personality, for his learning, where's the best place for him. So he said he should just show him the halacha that, and not only that, the halacha, I think that Rebbe pointed out, is located in Shulchan Aruch in Hilchos Kibud Ava'im. So this din itself is in Hilchos Kibud Ava'im. That you should, in this case, you don't listen to the father, and the son, can go to where he wants to learn. Yeah, he kept up a good relationship with his family, but it was just that obviously they did want him to stay in the Hasidus. Here was a grandson of a big Rebbe, and that Rebbe, his grandfather had a kesher with the Rebbe. He was close to the Rebbe. He came to visit the Rebbe in 770. Rabbi Yochanan Achem Strifke in the early years, in the 50s. But and they were Chernobler Hasidus. The Achem Strifke Hasidus, they are Chernobler dynasty. The Chernobler Rebbe, the Matel Chernobler, he had 8 sons. Every one of his 8 sons became a Rebbe. So the Skver Rebbe's, Skver is one of his sons, became the Rebbe in Skver. One of his sons stayed in Chernobyl, became the Rebbe after him in Chernobyl. Another went and became a Rebbe in the city of Racham Strifk. Another one went to became was known as the Cherkasser. And Bisol Yaakov at Cherkas, he went to live in the city of Cherkas. The Cherkasser actually became a son-in-law by the Mittler Rebbe. So that's where the Chabad and Chernobyl joined together, married into each other, where the Matel Chernobyl and the Mittler Rebbe became Mechutanim. This happened in the lifetime of the Alter Rebbe. This was a very big shidduch. That was the Cherkasser. And the Cherkasser is actually the great grandfather of the Frierdiker Rebbe, because the Frierdiker Rebbe's grandmother was his daughter. So the Frierdiker Rebbe had Polish blood. He wasn't just from the Alter Rebbe. He came from the Matel Chernobyl's family. I'll just tell you an interesting thing before we conclude, that today we know that in Hasidim, Chabad Hasidim, and all Hasidim, Matzah Shabbos, they wear their Shabbos clothing even after Havdalah. They have Malafa Malka and everything in their kapata and the Shabbos clothing. However, this wasn't always the case. In Lubavitch, when Lubavitch was in this village of Lubavitch, in the yeshiva Lubavitch, the minig was, as soon as Havdalah was over, they used to right away remove the Shabbos clothing. It's not Shabbos anymore. It's choil, it's vachadik. They would remove the Shabbos clothing. However, have a Polish Hasidim who grew up, other Hasidim. Chernobyl is actually Ukrainian Hasidim, but other Hasidim would be makbid that no, Matzah Shabbos, it still has a connection to Shabbos. We have a lot of milk and everything, and you should wear your Shabbos clothing throughout the evening, I guess till after Chatzos. Is Lamaisa, this all changed in the times of the Frierdiker Rebbe, because the Rebbe Rashab, it seemed like the Rebbe Rashab liked this minig of wearing the clothing after Havdalah, so he himself didn't want to make any changes, because that was always the way all Chabad Rebbes would do. They would take off the Shabbos clothing after Shabbos. However, he told the Frierdiker Rebbe, since because the Rebbe Rashab's wife was a granddaughter of the Cherkasser and a great-granddaughter of the Matel Chernobyl. So she was from Chernobyl dynasty. It was a mix. So the Frierdiker Rebbe was their son. So Rebbe Rashab said, since you, the Frierdiker Rebbe, my son, you come from Chernobyl dynasty through your mother, you should take upon yourself this minhag of wearing Shabbos clothing on Matzah Shabbos. And because the Frierdiker Rebbe did that, and the Frierdiker Rebbe later became Rebbe, so the Hasidim all did what the Frierdiker Rebbe did. And that became the minhag Chabad today also. And no one even knows that it was different at one point. But I heard from Hasidim, they remember that, let's say, Rabbi Yoel Khan's father, the famous Chassid Reb Fala Khan, he was a Chassid who learned by the Rebbe Rashab in Lubavitch, in the yeshiva. As soon as Shabbos was over, he had his old minhag that he always kept to. So when Shabbos was over, he right away took off his kapata, his pekasha, and put on his regular jacket, because that's what he was trained, he was educated, that you don't wear your Shabbos clothing, Matzah Shabbos. But those that were Hasidim already, of the Frierdiker Rebbe, already changed, and obviously by the Rebbe, it wasn't even a discussion already. So by the Rebbe's times, everyone was doing that, except for those who were older Hasidim who saw the Rebbe Rashab and were educated during that time period, who had their minhagim, that they had their girs of the ankus, as we call it. They had how they were taught in their youth, and they kept up that minhag. So I want to wish everyone a good night, and I hope maybe even next week already we'll see how things develop. Maybe there'll be a lot of changes. In the next week or two, we should be already able to be learned together in the shul.
Be'ezrat Hashem.
Yeah,
Correct.
close,
Thank
everyone. Have a good night. Stay safe.
Watch how you're driving home. They have curfew, 11 o'clock all over the city.
Yeah, that's a good thing that you made a Zoom share with me tonight. I didn't have to drive back from there.
Oh,
There's a
okay.
beautiful Havana. We didn't do Kiddush Havana. There's a beautiful Havana tonight.
Oh, the guys are Shakaya, but be careful. Be careful. After
Nah,
11,
they don't.
there's a curfew.
There's a
Thank
curfew.
you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Yes. Take
now
care.
we-
Call to sei gesund.
Kol tov.
God do.
Sei gesund.
Thank you.
Spasiba.
There's a beautiful Havana, Chevra. I wish I could do it with